So yeah, I knew it was coming, but yeah, I didn't think seeing Sam in that Cap outfit would hit me the way that it did. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you'll be the first to know. Yes, I know. Did not do one of these for episode 5. Long story short, got new neighbors above my head, and they make a lot of noise. So anytime that I was talking, it sounded like horseshoes were going through the strip. So that one had to be removed. So that's why it did not happen. But I'm back here for the final episode for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and it was a nice little coda to the end. It is not a perfect finale episode, but it does hit hard on some very important things that mean a lot to me. Mainly the Sam of it all. I will say that this episode and this series as a whole has done a really good job of making me know Sam more, and if nothing else, making it his journey. He was given the shield, but this made it seem the journey as to being able to earn and put on that cap uniform. It just made it feel much more honest, earned, and heartfelt and poignant, which I think was the point of this entire series. Where we were going through the journey to see Sam feel comfortable putting on that uniform, even in a world that would not be comfortable with him doing so. So this picks up right at the end of episode 5, where the GRC been attacked by the Flag Smashers. Carly's gone rogue and and wants to do some damage. So Bucky in his now cool little hot topic black with black and gold arm, and Sam in his new decked out Wakandan armor, Captain America armor, show up on the scene. And man, that first shot of him coming up with the wings and spread out is, yeah, that just felt good seeing a black dude in that uniform. Obviously it's a Wakanda suit, but it's not super amplified like some people may have thought it was going to be. He's still basically doing his things, but he's got rockets on it as well with the wings. And it's a little impacted, obviously, for bulletproof purposes, but for the most part, he's doing a lot of the work, the heavy lifting himself. So that's still cool to sort of make him, his heart and his morality and his thought is sort of what makes him more the hero than him being the strongest person in the room. And so this episode has a lot of cleaning up of the final action sequence and getting all that stuff together. It gets a little wonky, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But where this hits the most with me is just the wrap up of Sam. I think once the battle is sort of set and Carly has been stopped, we get a pretty poignant speech to the world, but to specific people in charge who kind of say, you're sort of responsible for these folks. You label them as terrorists or or thugs, which is a play on how often they sort of label African American men. But you label them as this and this and this, but sometimes it's a lot of the what you have done to put them in this position, and so and he's like, you don't, and the GRC sort of responds, the leader sort of responds to Sam saying, hey, you don't understand. You'll never understand what we have to go through. And like you're saying that to a black man who's wearing this flag, who doesn't understand struggle and trouble. It's crazy because some of it feels, and it was a very preachy monologue scene. Seems a little bit on the nose, but man, it definitely worked on me. And perhaps some of that is because of the week that we've had with the world being the world and the results of the George Floyd situation. So all of that coming together at a head, and then having this speech, it just felt good. And then to see that Sam goes on to give Isaiah a moment in the sun at the Cap library, if you will, and sort of make sure that he is seen and that he is known, and that the world will now know him. That just felt important, because when he hugs him, you can just feel all the pain in all the world that somebody who looks like him, who's now wearing that soldier, is now representing that, can now reach back and say, "Hey, you should be acknowledged as well." That was great. It still gives me chills and goosebumps right now. That is not to say that this episode is perfect. I think this episode is about 35 minutes too short. And I don't know if some of this is because of the pandemic that they couldn't go back to film things, or if they just had to re-edit stuff because some of the stuff that they were getting into might have been too close to real world stuff. But there's a lot of stuff that is unanswered. Let's start off with Bucky. I think Bucky gets the short end of the stick in the entire series, but I feel like that's okay because we have enough films where Bucky was sort of the main, while Cap was the lead, Bucky was the lead A, or lead B. And so I don't quite mind that he didn't get the story, but it seems like because we didn't get the story, we do a pretty rush job where at the beginning of this, we spent almost a half an episode with Bucky, half an episode with Falcon at the very start, and then we sort of become pro Sam all the way through, which is great, to then come back and what we're wrapping up at the very beginning with Bucky and his friend, who we all sort of know he had killed his son. He finally goes to reveal that information. I'm like, this could have happened somewhere else, so we could have gotten Bucky somewhere else on the board as opposed to let's rush this into a coda of it in the last 15 minutes of the show. The Sharon Carter of it all, we all sort of saw she was the power broker. It was very obvious. I wish they had done a better job of either hiding it or giving us another person to sort of red herring to say it's not Sharon, it's this person, and then it comes back and it's Sharon, because when you don't do that, it is very anticlimactic that she's like, I'm the power broker. And you're kind of like, yeah, damn. I mean, we all knew that. I guess, cool. And then the John Walker and the Flag Smashers of it all, the villains. I think the biggest issue this series just has as a whole, as much as I love us getting to that point, is that we have a slight bit of a villain issue. Walker, last episode 5, was a better overall episode. There was just much more energy, power, and storytelling in that episode. This feels like the coming down off of that. Walker in that episode was seen to be more of the villain and was a bit more unhinged. He had just come off of decapitating someone in front of everyone with a cap shield and it was completely bloody. So then it leads me to question why Sam and Bucky and the world would be so reticent to accept him back into the fold and sort of being on the team. It just feels a little disingenuous, and I was like, I feel like you should still have a problem with him. So it's one of those where the person who was your villain or nemesis then becomes sort of a quasi-ally. So he is no longer the main villain. And then Carly, with the Flag Smashers, her course changes so quickly, where I think there should have been another moment between Sam and she to sort of have a little bit another moment of dialogue before it all goes to shit. I think there's at least another moment to have where Sam sort of tries to reach out and she's just saying this is the breaking point, because it feels unfortunately sort of anticlimactic when she does die, because the fight sequence, she just seems very underpowered. And I think the more of the weight of that final sequence would have been in the heart and emotion of it than the hand-to-hand combat, because she's just not going to be able to go against the people that are in that. And for her to so anticlimactically just get shot and die by Sharon, all of it just feels too quick and clean, and that character is lessened because of that. And it just feels like overall, it's like, oh, this series didn't really have a strong villain, but the the message that was being delivered hit hard. And I think that, depending on where you stand on people of color, black people, will depend on how you sort of feel about the show overall. Because that, as a whole, the show may not be the best as far as the one-to-ones of hero to villain, who's the villain and how high, because Zemo is truly the villain, but then he becomes a good guy. So there's really every time that we put a villain on the board, we sort of take them off and make them gray. But the true story is seeing Sam go from a very reluctant hero for reasons that he wasn't even quite aware of, that are ingrained in you as a black male, to then becoming comfortable enough to don the stars and stripes and So that's the journey, and I think if you can accept that and see that's what this story is, you'll appreciate this show a lot more. We do get sort of two tail ends or two codas for this, if you will. We get Val back to sort of make John Walker the U.S. agent, which we all sort of knew was going to be the case. We get him in a black suit with the A off, so the traditional U.S. agent stuff. And she's like, I'll reach out to you when I need you. So he's on the board. We see Zemo at the raft. Literally everyone's going to the raft. And we see that in the tail end or the post-credit sequence, we see that Sharon has been reinstated into, well, S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't exist, but she's been reestablished into the government and has now got more power and more access as the power broker who's still doing the double agent duty both sides. So it's going to be interesting to see where she goes in the future. We've just been notified that Captain America 4 is in the works, which was kind of cool at the end of this to see that the Falcon and the Winter Soldier font and heading has been changed to Captain America and the Winter Soldier. So we're officially calling Sam Captain America, which still makes me happy. And so we're going to get a film with a black Captain America, which is going to be, it's going to be lit. I'm excited for that. I can't wait till that happens. I do hope that we get some more Bucky, and I hope that in some way or another, I know he's old man Bradley, but I do hope that there's a way that we can get to see some of Isaiah Bradley as the first super soldier or Cap in this. Should be interesting. It should be fun. I'm excited to kind of go down the world of Captain America who is African American. We're putting a lot of people of color and represented groups in this next wave of Marvel flicks, and I'm here for it. What did you guys think of Captain America and the Winter Soldier, the final episode? Go ahead and leave your comments in the comments below. If you haven't, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI or hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. We are currently doing a run of Buddies for Life where we're using the Captain America and the Winter Soldier series to sort of look at buddy films throughout the history of cinema. We also have a sister podcast called You Can't Do That Anymore, where we talk about classic films such as Back to the Future, Gone with the Wind, or West Side Story, and look at those films for when they came out through the eyes of 2021 to see if some of the things they got away with doing, they can do today. But like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.